Welcome to Just Energy Radio with your host, naturopath and medical intuitive, Dr. Rita Louise. We have learned from Einstein's theory that matter and energy are one. Physicists believe that all systems in nature have their own particular way of vibrating. From the swinging of a pendulum to the waves of the ocean to the light that brightens the sky each day, each of these oscillates at its own unique rate. The same holds true for every thought, feeling, event, or word we speak. Each has its own frequency or rate of vibration. What many of us don't realize is when we take everything in our universe down to its simplest form, it is all just energy. Join Dr. Rita Louise on a journey through time and space where past, present, and future collide. Today, what you believe may be called into question. What we want to know is, who made up the rules? Be brave and step outside the box. We are about to turn our world upside down and venture into the unknown. Hold on. We are departing our own beliefs and entering alternative realms. Enjoy the possibilities.
Hello and welcome to Just Energy Radio. I'm your host, Dr. Rita Louise, and thank you all for tuning into the show today. Well, today we're going to be talking about all kinds of great stuff, quantum physics, morphogenic resonance, and society. And to share that with us, we have HermanSJr going to talk to us. And I'm going to find out if it's HermanSJr, which I heard somebody say, or if it's HermanSJr, but I'm not quite sure. But let me remind you that Just Energy Radio is brought to you by SoulHealer.com, where you can find out about all the products and services I offer, including medical intuition evaluations, psychic readings, and energy healing. So if there's stuff going on in your life, give me a call, drop me a note, and we can set up a time for a private consultation, either in person, by phone, or even over Skype. It's also brought to you by the Institute of Applied Energetics. That's www.appliedenergeticsinstitute.com. So I'm going to forego the announcements today, and let's just get Herman on the air. But let me give you a little information about him, and we will get him on. Since early childhood, Herman has been autodidactic, an avid problem solver. He uses this practice every day in his personal life as well as his professional life. He is a believer in pure energy in an entity field that has evaded most people's search and understanding. He is an avid researcher for truth, reality, and human potential. His research consists of him using general systems theory to investigate debilitating individual and societal problems while using a multitude of scientific principles to remove those obstacles that stifle human potential. So please welcome to Just Energy Radio, and I'm going to say it the other way, HermanSJr. Was that right this time?
Oh, you had it right the first time, actually.
It was right the first time? All right. But, you know, at least I didn't mispronounce it. I just said it totally wrong. So
yeah, I was surprised that you actually said it properly originally. Someone else said it improperly at a previous interview. But so I appreciate that. Thank you for having me on the show.
All right. We got the Gremlins happening tonight so soon. How fun.
They don't want the show to happen.
Well, I've had weird things happen on this show, so hopefully we'll just keep the good mojo going. So, all right, Herman, so let's start here. What's your story? What got you researching topics, you know, that seem in some aspects kind of controversial, but that seem to underscore contemporary science and society?
Well, what got me started in all this is I've always been a true nerd as a kid. I've always been interested in studying very weird things and posing unorthodox solutions to different problems. So I am a huge proponent of humanitarianism. I believe very firmly that there are things that are abounding in society, the global society. When I say society, I mean global society, that should not be here. And I believe that there's a lot of science, a lot of evidence that shows us that these things should not be here, whether it's, you know, racism or ageism or problems with religion and killings and all kinds of different things and stifling of people's potential. It's just that the science isn't, a lot of it is ridiculed by people who don't know better, or people who do know better, and they just are, it's in their best interest, such as academics and certain institutions. I won't go into what they are. In their best interest to keep a stupid society or a less than fully potentialized society. So I've always been someone who looks at a lot of evidence for the sciences and tries to say, okay, well, this science proves this science proves this. If we extrapolate that on sound extrapolations, then we can say, okay, well, we are not, we shouldn't be subjected to this, stereotyping and to this prejudice of, oh, I can't do that, or we can't. All these ridiculous things that help to stifle potential and help stifle society, because we're far more capable of doing just a grandiose amount of different things. It's just that people are not.
I'll entertain for a while. Okay, so let's see. What can I talk about? Well, I didn't ever make my little announcement, so since we're taking a little break here, don't forget that you can jumpstart your intuition today by going to the Institute of Applied Energetics webpage and downloading our free 50-page guide. That's Jumpstart Your Intuition, www.appliedenergeticsinstitute.com. Also, August 16th, Ancient Mysteries International Conference in Collinsville, Illinois. And September 6th, Dash Beardsley Wake the Dead Conference, September 6th. Let's see, what else didn't I talk about that I was supposed to at the beginning of the show? And we'll just kind of like restart here. If you've missed an episode of the show, please do go to justenergyradio.com. There are over 7 years worth of archives that you can listen to. You can always come here to Inception Radio Network and listen to the shows online, or go to our YouTube channel. That's Just Energy Radio on YouTube. And I was just told he's back. So welcome back, Herman, from the your little abduction experience. I'm glad that you made it back in one piece.
Yeah, I'm actually 40 years older, but it all seemed like a second.
So, whenever we have somebody disappear on the show, it's gremlins, it's ghosts. One of my new ones, it's they were abducted and they've had some missing time. So welcome back.
Thank you. Now I experienced that. But they're very nice to me.
Well, that's good. That's good. You shouldn't even open that door with me, because I have some really bad commentary that I usually make about alien abductions. Oh, yeah. So you're there. Okay. Yeah. Moving along. But speaking about the whole concept of alien abductions and extraterrestrials in general, I know that in a lot of your work, you really look at religion and the impact religion has on society. And one of the new things that has kind of, touched upon society has been the whole question about, the God of the Bible being an extraterrestrial. So what do you think of that concept?
Yes.
Oh, that's the answer? So I should just move on?
Well, no, sorry. I'm struggling with the signal here going in and out. I heard that you said the issue is God being an alien, the Christian God. Is that was your question?
Yeah, pretty much. Mm-hmm.
I think it's that's a touchy subject. I think that let me deal with the facts here first, and then I'll extrapolate or give my opinion. We do know that there was someone named Jesus that walked this earth. There is in the Muslim cultures or Arabic regions, he's called Esau. And there are a lot of records all across certain regions across the world that there was an individual named Jesus or Esau that existed. And the records comply with what we know about him through Christian culture. So that much is given, and that's fact. Now, whether he was someone who was beamed back up to a mothership or whatever it is that you want to say, that is, of course, left up to personal belief. I think that a lot of evidence shows that he was a man. He did die A lot of people believe that he died on the cross, but there's a lot of evidence saying he lived to about 120 years old. He went over to Afghanistan after the cross, and he died a natural death at about 120 years old. So I personally side with I'm open to both interpretations. I mean, whether he is God himself, I don't think that there's any evidence to that. I think he came with a metaphysical message and not a literal message that a lot of people misinterpret, obviously. The Bible is a story of different metaphysical knowledges, I'll just say, that shouldn't be taken literally, such as the kingdom of heaven and all that. So if you look at it from that point, he's just someone who is a person who did live on this earth, who came and wanted to disseminate a certain message to all of us, saying the same thing that you profess on your show. We're all greater than this. We all have a far grander potential. It's just that religion came about, organized religion came about and just completely screwed up the whole thing and started saying, okay, it's this, it's that, this is what he meant, this is what he meant, and now we have organized religion as we do, which is far more negative than what it was first laid out to be.
Well, I mean, I wasn't really going to go with the Jesus thing personally. My feeling, but since we're here, I'll just kind of go down this rabbit hole. My personal feeling, I agree with you that, I do believe that there was a historical Jesus. But I feel like his message has been really perverted, and contorted into something almost, I'm going to say, unrecognizable to what his original message was. And there might be pieces of it, but I don't think there's a whole lot.
Right. Yeah, definitely. It's him or other religious icons. It's all the same. As soon as individuals come in and step in and take over things and try to organize the religion, they're not organizing the religion based on what, Jesus said or this person or that person, whatever person you're looking at. They're basing everything on an organization that is designed to keep certain, be careful with what I say here, keep certain controls in a society that some people believe should be controlled in a certain way. And that's the debilitating part of religion. That's the debilitating part that starts to stifle people, that starts to divide a global people, and it creates all kinds of ridiculous issues, killings and differentiations and factions and everything. And that's something that is, like you said, it's completely against the original message.
Well, I just find that it's really interesting, if you start with the concept that, the Christian concept that, there was Adam and Eve, and then everybody sprung from them, then we're all brothers and sisters, and it just doesn't even make sense to me why we all fight over the same God if there's only one, not one for every church on the block.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's just all a bunch of nonsense. In my opinion, it's something that is a very superficial argument. It is something that is put out there as disinformation to help distract people into fighting about something that doesn't matter in any way whatsoever. If you get a group of people arguing about whatever, Christianity versus Islam or Islam versus Judaism, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. But if you get a group of people to argue about a superficial argument, then they're distracted about that and they're not looking at the underlying messages that are put out, via your show, messages that are put out via researchers that say something along the lines of, we're all unified, we're all a global consciousness, we're all together. Religion is just, at this point in my life, I understand that it's just so ridiculously superficial, the arguments that are posed within it. It's like, just if you were to let go of those arguments and just look at the science that shows that we are all universal beings, we are all co-creators to a certain extent. of a certain reality, we are all unified, then the religious principles, they just fall apart. And then you start to see, okay, well, now I can understand that we are better. We are to be unified. There is only one, whatever you want to call it, one energy, one God, one universe, whatever terminology you want to say, it's irrelevant. But there is only one source, I'll just say, one energetic field at the basis of everything. We're all part of that. And that all just bypasses religion completely. But religion is set up for millennia, and it's doing, unfortunately, a really good job at segregating us and dividing us. And one of the principles in PSYOP, psychological operations, is to divide a group of people that you want to conquer. Everyone knows the phrase divide and conquer, I'm sure. And it's unfortunately, it's a big principle in PSYOP, and it is still used today, and it's extremely powerful.
Do you think that religions back in the day were using it in that way to divide and conquer? And were they trying to divide and conquer their own people? I mean, today I feel like it's, that methodology is being used to, well, no, it's being used in inside cultures, but it's also being used, country against country. I mean, it seems more global. But do you think that they had kind of the same thought process that we seem to find in governments today?
Well, I think the answer to that depends on at what point of time do you mean when you say way back in the day. I will answer it from an aspect of the religion of the church back in I'll say the medieval era.
That's a good place.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay.
That sounds like a good place.
Okay. Well, we all know that anyone who's well read upon the subject understands that the medieval system, the medieval church that was the ultimate authority. It bypassed, science, it bypassed thought, all kinds of ridiculous things. And whatever the church said was the head of everything. I mean, that was the final say so. And we see the ridiculous things that went on, the Inquisition, the Salem witch hunts, all these different things that went about, and it wasn't for, hey, let's get together and find out the truth. No, it was for a very focused and very intentional fight to keep the church alive, to keep it as the number one focal point of all power, even above governments. So if we were to go back to the Dark Ages, to the medieval times, we can see very clearly, in my opinion, that the church was set up and continued even to this day as a business. It's a business that's going to do whatever it can do to survive. And right now I'm saying church, but I mean any religious institution that's set up, whether it's in this country, it's irrelevant, but it's a business that's going to fight to survive. And it's in no interest of its own to come upon the truth one day and say, oh, well, Jesus meant this, or Muhammad meant this, or whoever it is, it's irrelevant. This person meant this, so we need to change our ways. Know that if that information ever did come about, which it has come about in history, through various artifacts, then they're going to hide it, they're going to suppress it, and they're going to create or to continue to create their version of everything, because if the truth were known, then obviously we would understand that a lot of things would just completely fall apart. So it's a business, and it's interested in professing its own things to keep itself alive.
It's just kind of a sad state of affair. It just seems like religion has moved so far from the rules that they bestow on everybody else to follow. Honor each other, don't covet your neighbor's wife or your neighbor's things, and not to kill. And it seems like in the name of religion, just about all the commandments have probably been broken.
Yeah, it's. That's one way that you can look at it. That it's just set up to survive, just that. It's just set up to survive. I mean, as we move forward, there are going to be other things that are going to be professed, and they're going to say something along the lines of, not that they were wrong, but that they want to, something like they want to move with the times, or religion is an evolutionary being, so it evolves with society, it evolves with the times and all that. Now I don't really want to get into specifics of religion, but just as one example here, we know that Adam and Eve is a metaphor. Now they're saying that Adam and Eve, the Garden of Eden, the original sin, never actually happened. So now they're saying it's just a metaphor. So the whole concept of original sin and baptism at the age of infancy is just completely not necessary. It's just, according to the beliefs that they professed for, hundreds of years earlier. So it's something that is just really superficial. It's a complete waste of time to just argue this religion's right, this religion's right. You'll find a much faster answer to certain questions if you just forget that, just do away with it and go to the source. Now, when I say do away with it, I mean do away with the ridiculous arguments, the ridiculous beliefs and systems that are saying, okay, Christians are right, or Muslims are right, or this person's right. Just go with the source and see how we're all together, and focus on that and see the science that is behind it, and you'll see a vastly different message that is far more positive than all this nonsense of that religion poses, and all these wars and killings and factions.
Okay, so I have my own question, but this is a question from Dead Sun Prime in the chat room to you. So what's the difference between organized religion and Statinism? Statism? Statism? I guess that would be the word, statism. I thought it said Satanism, but that's not really what it says.
Well, organized
is statism
religion,
a word?
Statism, I know what he means. It's a political, it's basically...
Okay, well, I'm glad you know, because I'm like...
I mean, no, please explain, Dr. Rita.
Well, there's the devil. I mean, because anyway... Phonics, not my thing, okay?
This is pretty fun. Well, statism is the basically that the state should control certain policies, and the state has a big control on certain systems. So I think that question is, while valid, of course, I think it's still superficial. Religion is something that's going to do whatever it is to try and survive. Obviously, we went over that. And I think most people know that without me even saying that. It's going to be an entity that is negative. It's going to do whatever it can to survive. Statism is something that the government is going to have a good degree of control on, different aspects. So whether it's the economy or social policy. And I think that's an argument that goes down the wrong path. I think that we should focus on like I said before, the similarities that we have as a people, as a global consciousness. I think that we should look within ourselves, within society, and see that we are supposed to be vastly different, vastly more positive. We're supposed to be able to accomplish such ridiculously grander things. And when I say ridiculous, I mean that in the good sense. Just an exorbitant amount of different things are available and possible for us. Once you start going into religion or some kind of organized control, whether it's religion, statism, capitalism, you're going down a different path, and it may or may not be a better path than the first one you were at originally, but it's still going to be a superficial path that doesn't do the best good. If you were to get away from all that stuff, all this negativity that's pumped into society for deliberate purposes by certain institutions, then go back to the source. I keep going at that. Go back to the source. Go back to how we're all unified, how we're all created, how we are all one, basically. And just focus on that. Then all these other arguments drop. It's like one example that I do use in my talks here is when Jesus went to when the lady was accused of being having an affair. And Jesus, she ran up to Jesus, and all the people wanted to stone her, of course. And Jesus said, "Let he who is without sin cast the first stone." And I just like that. I'm not professing Christianity or Jesus or anything like that. I'm just simply giving an example that I like. He uprooted all of their arguments. He didn't go down the path of, oh, why should she not be stoned? Well, because she's a good person. Well, because of this. Or, you're misinterpreting the religion. It doesn't mean this. It means this. He uprooted all their arguments by saying, he who is without sin cast the first stone. And that's what I think we need to do here when we're talking about trying to unify society. We need to stop this stuff of, looking at any kind of organized control, statism, religion, anything like that, and just go back to the source. So then we can uproot all these arguments that in the end really either don't mean anything or possibly pose more negativity, or at the very best pose some positivity, some better solution, yet not a grander solution that we need in order to move forward as a unified entity.
Well, when you talk about religion, because we're talking about pretty much contemporary religion, which I really do feel is a derivation of original concepts, where do you think we were? One of the words that you use is primordial religion. What do you think that is? What did that look like?
Well, primordial religion, yes, that's a word that an interviewer used, and he liked using very much. So it ended up being on a lot of different pages that are associated with my name. That just means the first religion, basically. So that is a tricky question. A lot of religions, if you were to start at a religion, whatever religion it is, it doesn't matter, and trace it back to, I'll just say, a singularity of all religions, where all religions supposedly came from one religion, which is a theory that is out there. It's very common. Then you're going to find that as you move backwards in time, as you're tracing religions, you'll find a huge amount of similarities between different religions, and they all do seem to converge in one specific area. So you'll go back and let's take Christianity. You'll go back and you'll see that Christianity is related to, or I don't want to use the word related, but extremely similar to certain other religions, to theories and principles and beliefs of Buddhism or other ancient religions of Egypt, other ancient religions of Sumeria. We know that the story of the Noah's flood, some kind of deluge that encompassed the whole earth, or at least a good portion of it, that's found in 2,000 different cultures across the world. So it's just, you start to see similarities spring up as you move backwards in time. And you see the question of a primordial religion seems to be extremely viable. You have all these religions merging into one focal point. Now, the time frame varies, whether you say it was 5,000 years ago or 3,000 years ago or 50,000 years ago. That is debatable. But you do see a huge amount of similarities to the point where you can't really account for them. If you do, you're really just playing dumb or trying to, do like the church and or any religion actually, trying to just, stifle information, not really look at the truth, not really look at information that is sitting at you and staring you right in the face. It's not going to be something that you can just dismiss. So you need to really focus on where it is and how these things are universal. And then when you do that, you come across a very interesting thing. You come across a message, an underlying message that you were talking about earlier, Dr. Rita, that it's a message of prosperity. It's a message of spirituality. It's a message of unity. It's a message that has been professed for millennia via various branches, this branch of religion, this prophet, this speaker, whatever it is. And if you were to go back to that source, that's where we all need to go in order to further our enlightenment, to go to that original source, which is what I constantly say. And to go back and study religions and their singularity is a good place to start.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, because it's not until around 5,000 years ago that there's really evidence of fighting nation states. Prior to that, it seems like, everybody got along, maybe they all like sang Kumbaya around the campfire. Don't really know. But it just seems like at that point in time, things started changing, and I don't know, some people blame it on the development of agriculture, and the ownership of property, because your products were on the property. And so now you claimed ownership, if that changed things or what. But it seems like prior to that, there was more harmony, not just between each other, but with us and the earth.
Yes, I agree with that. Where the divide started, where the, whatever you want to call it, where the selfishness started to come in, or the greed started to come in, whatever terminology you want to give it, is debatable. People started originally, we were all very unified. We were all very much in tune with the earth. We were all very unified and in tune with a type of underlying message, a type of underlying belief, underlying culture that we are all together. This is an earth that we all share. And then some time came along, something came along, some belief came along, and people started to realize that, okay, well, we're able to control a certain part of the world, a certain part of this culture. And in order to do that, we need to establish these principles. So let's just redirect the message just a little bit. Perhaps it was done a little bit in the past originally, or maybe a lot, we don't know. But let's just redirect things so we can better benefit from it in a way that either is just control or money or both. It doesn't matter. But we see that there is, as you go back, there's less and less controls established, and you see that the people were, some people even call it naivety, but I don't like that and I don't agree with that. But there was some kind of innocent, I'll just say, mindset and understanding that we are all together and we don't need all these, ridiculous arguments and everything. We all were unified far more to the planet and far more towards this universal intelligence. But as we move forward, you have all these different ridiculous arguments and all these different beliefs that just continue to stifle more and more human society and continue to add this control and that control towards human society and continue to build up this division and that division. And unfortunately, the people and the institutions behind those things, those negative things, are extremely good at what they do. I mean, they have millennia to practice it and perfect it. And these days, it's something that most people don't even see, sadly. They go throughout their whole life and don't see these things and don't see that they can be better, that they can live better lives. And if they have any doubt whatsoever, there is a trove of sciences out there that prove what we're talking about right now in this show. It's just that it's not made available. It's not disseminated readily so that people can see it.
Well, I'll just be completely politically incorrect. I mean, there are people that, do seek information, people that listen to this show, people that, read books, people that, even go on YouTube to try to gather information, and then there are a lot of other people who, are happy watching the game every week in basketball and, Honey Boo Boo on TV, and that's their life. And Duck Dynasty, and it's like, ooh, Duck Dynasty is on, and and it really is this really weird diversity of people on the earth, where you have some that are seekers and then other people that are here. I don't even know what to say.
That's enough. I know what you're talking about exactly. I just had a conversation recently, and all that is just distractions. I mean, all this nonsense that's made available to people, whether it's on radio or television, especially television, though. You touched upon Honey Boo Boo. I know about that show, but I don't know too much about it because I haven't watched television in over 3 years, and I will never go back to watching TV. It's just nothing but a distraction. I mean, we're not saying here that you shouldn't get into sports, you shouldn't watch sports or anything like that. What we are saying is that all these different distractions are laid out to do just that. They're deliberately and rigidly set up to distract people. It's set up to watch, these ridiculous shows of Honey Boo Boo, American Idol, all these different things that are just built up for distractions, playing video games for 8 hours. What they're distracting you from, when I say they, I mean these things. I'm not talking about people. I'm just saying these things. Watching TV for 40 hours a week or whatever. They're distracting you from looking and seeing what it is that you're supposed to accomplish or we're supposed to accomplish or seeing how to better society. I mean, you can see it just by looking at the salaries of individuals. What's more popular and what's more warranted in these developed countries such as America, such as certain countries in the EU. What's more popular and what's more wanted is celebrity. You people who are basketball players or football players or artists, or excuse me, not artists, but actors and actresses. And the scientists, the people who really move society, global society, are the ones that barely make a living. I mean, these people, if you're a scientist, you have to write for grant money. You're not really wealthy, as any scientist will tell you. Unless you make something extremely big for yourself. And all these different things are meant to keep it that way. So all the distractions that you just spoke about, they're put about there deliberately. All these different TV shows, Dynasty and everything, because while you're watching TV, while you're playing that video game for 4 hours every day or 8 hours every day, whatever, while you're doing this and that, and you're constantly living life that revolves around whatever sports team, you're not noticing what's being done because you're distracted. So in deception, what you want to do is you want to distract people from the real truth, whatever that real truth is. If you ask me a question and I don't want to answer it, I'm going to distract you. I'm going to redirect the answer. So in the end, I really didn't even answer your question. I just shifted the attention over to another area, and that's exactly what's being done. So it's something that is going to continue, unfortunately, to be a huge stifle for society. And until people see that that is a problem, it's going to continue, unfortunately.
Okay, so I will admit I did watch Honey Boo Boo, and I did sit in front of the TV set for almost an entire day watching that show because I was shocked. I mean, I was just like, I just can't believe that they have this on TV and what they were doing. And it was just like, well, one, that family was being filmed doing what they were doing. And I was just shocked. Yeah.
Well, that's okay.
But after one day, it was like, okay, you don't need to be shocked anymore. But yeah. I'm sure you've read Alex Huxley's Brave New World.
Yeah.
I mean, I just kind of feel like we have like different types of soma. I think about TV as soma. I think about all the antidepressant, medication that's given out to people as soma. I mean, if you took away the internet or cable TV, do you know what an uprising there would be in the United States?
Yeah, no, unfortunately, that's true. We shouldn't laugh, but
but it's true.
Yeah, and unfortunately, that's another good point to bring about regarding these distractions. I mean, if these things were taken away, it's not that people would turn and see things and say, you know what, we've been wasting our life, we've been wasting our time on watching, shows that don't do anything for us, they don't do anything for the betterment of ourselves, even of our loved ones, and much less society as a whole. So what would and they don't, turn into other people that just research things and try to better society. They'll just mob and revolt that we want our TV back, we want this back, which is exactly what you said, and that's not right. It's pretty sad. There just needs to be some kind of impetus, some kind of reshifting of awareness, some kind of redirection of everything that's going on. And that's one of the hardest parts of addiction, because people are addicted to these distractions. And the hardest part of addiction is to see that you have a problem and something else must be posed. So one of the biggest obstacles that we face as researchers and people who are trying to profess certain things is to first get people to see that there's a problem, to see that there should be something different, that we're far better, that we're not supposed to be living this way, that we're supposed to be doing certain things for ourselves, for the people we love, for society. And that is a huge effort, unfortunately.
Because you don't think that people are interested in doing it, or because it would take them out of their comfort zone, or why do you think it would be so challenging?
Well, the original challenge would definitely be to get people to see the difference. It's like, and this is viewable in many facets of life today. For example, even in marketing and in advertising, it's a very common phrase that, you have to hit people over the head with a sledgehammer to get their attention, because people are so involved, they're so already used to certain stimuli in their life that in order for you to get their attention, you have to do something better. You have to do something, far more effective. You have to dig deeper. And as you go along in life, as we go along in society, it's going to be more and more difficult for advertisers and marketers to do their job, to get the attention of people, because you're going to be used to certain messages that you've had inundating your life, for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, whatever it is. So you need to get their attention in a more creative way, I'll just say, a more effective way. And it's no different than the issue that we face as researchers trying to get people's attention. So the first obstacle is just trying to think of something that gets their attention, that says, okay, hey, look at this, look at that, that's not right. And then from there, then you get into the problem of certain people don't want to change because they're used to it, or certain people just are fearful of change. And that's common. That's going to be had. You're going to face that, obviously. But the biggest thing originally is to get them to see that this is not how it should be. But I will say we are doing a good job so far. The movement of a new consciousness, whatever movement name you want to give it, is rapidly building up. We are seeing that there are certain things that we need to do better. We are seeing that there are certain institutions that don't have our best interest in hand. They're not concerned with the better interest of society. So we are growing, but we can do always far more, and we can always do far better, as anyone can do in anything that they do in life.
You brought up an interesting point. You were talking about, marketers getting your attention. And, I just think of, I have my little DVR box, and I do not watch regular programming. I know you don't watch TV, but, I'm very selective about the shows that I watch, and I record them all so that I can basically fast forward through all the commercials so I don't have to watch them. Or if you go on Facebook, there's ads all over the place, or you go to a webpage that has an article somewhere, and there's just, Google AdSense and this ad and this ad and this ad. And I think, people are, one, finding them irritating, and no one clicks on them. And so the people that put this material out there, I don't think they're getting the marketers are getting the benefit that they had hoped for in their investment in doing the ads in the first place, because I don't think that society is responding in the way that they used to, because they're tired of it.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that. And that's something that marketing companies have been noticing for quite a few years now. It is harder to get people's attention, and they were seriously struggling to get people's attention. So now if anyone keeps up with the stats in marketing and advertising, the trust that people have, that consumers have for businesses, for corporations, is at an all-time low. If I remember the numbers correctly, in America, it's 38% of people trust companies. In
That's
EU,
actually kind of high.
I think it was, yeah, in the EU, it's like 51% or something like that. So it's plummeting.
That's even higher.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Nobody I know trusts commercials, so I'm not sure who that would be.
Well,
okay.
Go ask 10 people, and 3.8 of them will say no. Or will say yes, I trust them. And then you found your 8%.
They must be watching, Honey Boo Boo and Duck.
Well, yeah, I'm sure those are the people that would still trust the companies. So the companies, the marketing and advertising companies, they've seen this for quite some time now, and they were extremely concerned. So they had to build an entire new paradigm. So now what they're doing is doing unconscious marketing, doing marketing to the subconscious. So they term it different things. They term it neuromarketing. They term it, what's the other one? Subliminal marketing. Whatever terminology they use, it's all the same.
I thought that was illegal.
Well, when I say subliminal, I mean more of the term. I'm not talking about subliminal messages, none of that stuff that you're talking about. I'm talking about neuromarketing, where you're using certain color contrast, where you're using certain words, where you're using certain perspectives of a camera, that whether that camera is a video camera or a still camera, that go towards the subconscious mind, towards the limbic mind, which is the emotional mind, or the primitive mind. So those things, those messages, override the conscious mind, the neocortex mind, the mind that controls decisions, the executive center, it's known as. And it overrides that thing, and it has people create a lot of different impulse buying, and they don't really realize that they're buying because of certain stimuli that they've faced through neuromarketing or whatever. And it's pretty darn good. It's pretty darn effective. So that's the new thing that they're doing now. If you look into neuromarketing, neuroadvertising, it's a huge thing. So they realize that a lot of people are just tired of what you said. Everything you said was perfect. The Google ads, the ads on Facebook, all these different things. So they're doing it in a way where you're not really seeing that you're being marketed to, and it's working.
Okay, so give a couple examples. You can whisper and just tell me. So what companies are using that kind of marketing? Because now I want to I want to bring it into my consciousness, because this is really the first time that I'm hearing about this personally, and I find it fascinating and think it would be kind of fun to start looking around to see if you can spot it in different things that are going on.
That's probably the gremlins messing with the signal.
What, didn't you hear what I say? Wait, I don't see any black choppers over my house, so that's a good thing.
All of a sudden we lost the connection. It's something that anyone can, especially with the internet these days, anyone can really research any type of subject. So if you just look into that, you'll learn the different things that are used and the different ways that you're being marketed to. And it's not always a case of, evil companies trying to market you to do stuff that you don't want. It's nothing like that, but it is something that is appealing to you that you may not know about. And if you just study on a superficial level, even neuromarketing and the things that are used, then you'll be better aware of when you're being marketed to and be able to make a more conscious decision of, is this something that I really want? Is this something that's really going to benefit myself or my family or my friends, whoever it is, my loved ones? And it's a very interesting concept. It's a very interesting discipline, but it just happens to be the next, media that they're using. Just like when television came out, before the media that they were using was radio announcements, radio advertising. Then television came about and they were using television commercials. And then now we have neuromarketing and all that stuff. So it's just another media that they came about and they're now using. And 50 years from now, they'll probably use something else.
Okay, so you're not going to give us any examples.
Well, I think that there are a lot out there. I'm very careful not to name certain. I like to stay very general. Let people find out for themselves and give abstractions.
Okay, we'll give an abstract. Does it have golden arches? That's what they were talking about in the chat room.
Sorry, I can't hear you. What was that? There's a gremlin over here. No, but
moving along.
There are a lot of examples that people will see, though.
Well, I just think that it's interesting that, someone came up with this in the first place and that, there's probably classes on it. And, like you said, websites where you can find out about it. I've taken some... not really a class about subliminal advertising, but that has been part of the course. And it's just fascinating that, they come up with this stuff and like putting little suggestive pictures in the ice cube that you really can't even see until someone like points it out. And it's like, really?
Yeah.
It's like, God, and somebody had to think this up. Anyway, okay, so that's where we were. So, okay, where are we time-wise? All right, I'm going to come full circle because we're going to hit a break here pretty soon. So when we opened the show up, I asked you about the God of the Bible possibly being an extraterrestrial, and you came back to me with Jesus. And so I want you to think of like the earlier God of the Bible, maybe big G God of the Old Testament. Because, if you talk to some people that are ancient alien proponents, they would say that God was an extraterrestrial. And so what is your thought on that whole new paradigm that has been coming into societal consciousness?
Well, I'm well versed with ancient astronaut theory, and it is, if you look at the information that the theorists are posing, even if you're extremely skeptical, if you look at the evidence that they pose, there is a huge amount of do I want to use the word evidence, of things that match what they profess. Whether you call it evidence or not, there are a lot of different things in cultures across the globe, in religions across the globe. These are not crackpots. These are people with, a very good critical eye, and a lot of the information it genuinely matches up with what they're posing. Now, I'm not saying that that's true or not true, but I am saying that there is a huge amount of evidence for it. And if you were to look at it from the aspect of everyday life, let's say, let's just say there's a court case, okay? It doesn't matter what kind, but the court is trying to prove that something happened. If you have a handful of witnesses, then, you're going to have a substantial backing, as long as those witnesses are credible, obviously. But if you have a an amount of witnesses and amount of evidences that number the thousands, tens of thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands, but at least tens of thousands things. I mean, it's what they call an open and shut case. It would be really ridiculous to say, oh, that's a bunch of garbage and just dismiss it. So I know the evidence for these things, a lot of it, and I think that it's something that, if nothing else, is extremely warranted as far as more research, as far as a substantial looking into. So, yeah, there's a huge amount of evidences that show that there is a plausibility of certain beings, being recorded in this religion or this culture and everything. It's not something that that should be laughed at. And I'm talking from the aspect of pure science and pure evidence. I'm not even talking as a proponent or a skeptic of that theory. I'm saying that there is a huge amount of information that really should be looked at. It's not something to be laughed at. So with that said, you can very well pose the question or the hypothesis that, well, maybe, this God, that God, or whatever, they weren't really gods, but they were people from different dimensions, whatever term you want to use, spirits or aliens, whatever, that's irrelevant. But people who had a certain influence on a group of people that was less educated, less intelligent back then, whenever then was, whether it's 5,000, 10,000 years ago, it doesn't matter. So it's definitely something that is extremely interesting and really should be looked at with a lot of intent by the academic community. But of course, they're the ones to shut it down very quickly.
Well, I think that there's more and more evidence coming forward that they just try to wipe out and dismiss or ignore or hide. They're good at hiding.
Yeah. It's just it's ridiculous how that just happens. And Dr. Rupert Sheldrake, who's the original professor of morphogenetic resonance, he actually has talks and articles about this very same thing, about academia becoming a religion and the science community becoming dogmatic and more religious and more into keeping itself alive based on the current precepts that it has today. And if anything falls out of that range, anything falls outside that belief or their belief systems, then it's very quickly attacked and put away with or hidden, whatever technique that they want to use. And it's just really ridiculous because science never has all the answers. It's a method that's always wanting to improve more and more as you move forward. But the academic community, a lot of them, are just interested in keeping the status quo. And you find that typical of a lot of different time frames within history in science, pretty much in anything, but we're talking about science here, where they're more interested in keeping things as it is. That's why whenever you come across some kind of new invention or some kind of unorthodox belief or discovery, whether it's, us being able to fly, us being able to travel into space, the discovery of quantum physics, then you're going to have people who are just ridiculed at first, of course. And eventually, if enough people look into it and profess it, then it becomes a reality.
Well, on that note, we need to go to break. And when we come back, we're going to switch gears out of religion and talk about its nemesis, even though it's not, but physics. And actually, one of the things you talked about, morphogenic resonance, because I think it's a fascinating topic. Sound good?
Sounds great.
Okay. I'm Dr. Rita Louise. We're here talking to HermanSJr. His webpage is HermanSJr.com, and he has a book, which I just found out about today, Seeking Truth While Shifting Through a Global Practice. And we'll be back with Herman after these words from our sponsors.
Just Energy Radio with your host, Dr. Rita Louise, will return right after these messages.
You're listening to IRN, the Inception Radio Network, Chicago, Illinois.
Are you looking for a cure for boredom? Never worry. IRN's new interactive website introduces a number of ways to pass time while you listen to your favorite show. Choose anything from the IRN Chat Lounge, the Game Lounge, Video Lounge, or the Mood Lounge. These fun, exciting features let you chat in real time with fellow listeners, view live skywatches, play daily posted online games, or pick a show based on topic. The choices are endless. Use your time wisely, keeping it all on IRN.
Who were the gods of antiquity? They've been described as the forces of nature, levels of consciousness, and aspects of our psyche. Stories that depict their incredible weapons, their flying machines, and their amazing adventures are characterized as being the product of our ancestors' fanciful imaginations. But what if the tales of the gods are true? Did the writers, chroniclers, and scribes of our distant past actually document a realistic view of our origin? My latest book, Man-Made, The Chronicles of Our Extraterrestrial Gods, looks at our most ancient legends. Learn of the torrid romances, elaborate plots, violent scandals, and conspiracies that played out in antiquity. Find out the role the gods played in the life and culture we have today. If you want to find out the truth of who we are and where we come from, order your copy of Man-Made today. For more information, go to www.manmadethechronicles.com. That's www.manmadethechronicles.com.
Hello, Inception Radio Network listeners. This is Amanda. Remember, you can take your Inception Radio shows on the go. Just download the Inception Radio Network app for your iPhone, iPad, or Android smartphones and access live shows, past shows, guest lineups, and much more. Just visit the iTunes Store or the Google Play Marketplace and download it today for free.
Move past the crossroads in your life and discover alternative solutions to your deepest concerns at soulhealer.com. So whether it's a physical problem, an emotional issue, a question about work, or troubles in your relationships, naturopath and medical intuitive Dr. Rita Louise can help you. Bring peace, harmony, and health back into your life. Schedule a session today. Visit soulhealer.com right away and live the life you've been dreaming of.
You didn't forget what's coming up tonight, did you? Hi, Inception Radio Network listeners. This is Amanda. Never miss that interview you were looking forward to or the show on your favorite topic. Follow IRN on Twitter, I_R_N, and get reminders about the evening's live shows as well as fun and important updates throughout the week. That's I_R_N, and never miss a great show again.
We only have a couple of seconds before we have to get back to the show, and I want to tell you how you can jumpstart your intuition today. Using my free 50-page introductory guide filled with simple, revolutionary, and proven techniques, you can ignite your intuition and tap into your inner wisdom, all from the comfort of your own home. The Institute of Applied Energetics is the leader in online home study instruction for those interested in becoming a certified medical intuitive, intuitive counselor, or energy medicine practitioner. Now is the time to transform your life and take it to a completely new level. Discover who you are and how you work. Open the door to the world of intuition, health, and healing. You can jumpstart your intuition right away by going to www.appliedenergeticsinstitute.com and downloading our free guide. Get the opportunity of a lifetime and live the life you deserve. Download your free Jumpstart Your Intuition guide today at www.appliedenergeticsinstitute.com and begin living a life filled with passion and purpose.
Don't have a computer? Is your internet connection down? Don't worry. Use your trusty cell phone or landline and call into our listen line at 401-283-6700 to listen to the Inception Radio Network 24/7. Again, that call-in number is 401-283-6700. For the Inception Radio Network, I am MJ.
Go deep inside yourself and venture into the realm of the unconscious mind with my Meditating on the Kabbalah guided imagery audio CDs. Discover who you are and what you want in life. Meditating on the Kabbalah can help you to open, clear, and revitalize the energetic pathways of your subtle being. They will support you in your spiritual quest by helping you to access the profound insights and inner guidance you need as you work in alignment with your highest good. Let them help you to release negative thoughts and emotions and clear away any limitations that may be keeping you from experiencing your full potential. Walk down the path to health, healing, understanding, and enlightenment with Meditating on the Kabbalah. Order your copy today at www.soulhealer.com. That's right, that's www.soulhealer.com.
Hello, Inception Radio Network. Would you like your favorite show to be played again live on air? Well, now the choice is in your hands with IRN's live request portal, an easy way to request your favorite show with a simple click. IRN's live request portal now gives you exclusive access to all the shows. How easy is it? Simply type a show name or a guest name, click request, even write a dedication message, and that's it. Try it now. Simply visit InceptionRadioNetwork.com, click on the live request tab under the show menu. Now playing your favorite show is just a mouse click away.
And now back to Just Energy Radio with Dr. Rita Louise.
Hello and welcome back to the second hour of Just Energy Radio. Thank you all for staying tuned to the show for the second hour. Just Energy Radio is brought to you by SoulHealer.com, where you can find out about all the products and services I offer. It's also brought to you by the Institute of Applied Energetics, where you too can learn to become a medical intuitive counselor, or certified energy medicine practitioner. If that's something you're interested in, please do go by the site. We do have all of our training programs on special right now. And as always, you can download your free 50-page Jumpstart Your Intuition training guide from the website today. So let's get back with Herman. He is the author of Seeking Truth While Sifting Through a Global Practice. His website is HermanSJr.com. And Herman, still there?
Yes, I am. Hello.
Aliens didn't get you or anything?
They just dropped me off.
Oh, okay, good. You didn't miss anything, so they were good.
Yeah. Another time span of 40 years went by, but we're good here on Earth.
Wow, and you sound so young.
It's all the tang.
Yeah. Oh, God. Okay, so we're going to kind of change gears here. And so let's start with this question. There are many people who believe that sciences like quantum physics will help us unravel the true nature of the universe. What do you think?
I think that quantum physics is I adore quantum physics. It's a phenomenal science. I am happy to be living in the age that we're in right now, and happy to see that quantum physics is doing such a great job in professing these things that we profess as researchers in the spiritual realm. But you also have to be very careful. I'm known as being very adamant about using the sciences to profess a certain phenomena, to disprove it or prove it, whatever it is, or at least say it is possible or plausible. But when it comes to quantum physics, I am a huge professor of it, but at the same time, I always say that we should be very careful when we use science, and quantum physics is one of those sciences, because unfortunately, a lot of people, this new age movement, this new thought movement, whatever you want to call it, it's moving at an extremely fast pace, and a lot of people are going about saying, well, quantum physics proves this, it proves that. All you have to do is, get into positive thought and that'll change your life and everything. And there are truths to that, but you have a lot of people that are just reading one book of quantum physics or a half a book of quantum physics or not fully understanding it.
No books of quantum physics, but I'll let you continue.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a good point too. Yeah, no books of quantum physics. And they're really moving forward saying, yeah, we have this great science and it says all this and everything. And you just want to be careful because you want to have a healthy skepticism. You want to use whatever toolkit you have. And when I say toolkit, I mean the sciences, whether it is quantum physics or psychology or just traditional physics, whatever it is. But you want to be careful and make sure that you're not just believing anything. And you also, at the same time, there are a lot of variables here. At the same time, you do have to recognize if you're going to be a researcher, and when I say researcher, I mean anyone who's researching something, not an academic researcher. If you're going to be a seeker of truth, a researcher of truth, you have to acknowledge that science cannot test for everything, that every phenomena that we experience today, every phenomena that comes into question today. So you have to, if you're looking for real truth and real evidence that's out there, you have to confess that and understand that. So possibly make extrapolations based on sound sciences to say some phenomena is true or some phenomena is false. But at the same time, you also have to be careful to make sure that you're not just giving the fact that, oh, well, science can't test for it as an excuse. And you're not following someone who's saying, well, yeah, I have this phenomena and I believe this and this is my theory, this is my professing. And when you ask them, well, what about this? And, how can science doesn't test for that. And they simply say, oh, well, we just can't test for it. That's it. Because then you're going to fall under the problem of, like religions. Well, it's just God and that's it. So just keep quiet. So you want to be careful, but you want to use whatever tools you can use, such as quantum physics or any other science, to profess whatever it is that you are professing, because it proves more powerful, more importantly for yourself. Because if you're going around this life, and which unfortunately has a lot of people who are very negative due to certain inculcations in society, then you're going to have a huge detriment. It's going to be a detrimental effect on your psyche, on your belief of like, oh, can I really do this? Can I really be someone? Can I really be successful for myself, for my spouse, for my loved ones? And if you come at those negativities, those days where you don't believe in yourself, perhaps, by the sciences, and just say, no, I know this because this science proves this is true, this science proves this is true, so there's no question of whether I can do it or not, then you're far more capable of going further than you were if you were just doing it on your own. And quantum physics is one of those sciences that's come about that shows a lot of weird stuff is actually true, that sages were professing for millennia, spiritual people were professing for millennia. And it's just an exciting time to be here right now to see those things come about.
Well, I have to tell you, I come out of the New Age, New Thought movement. That's my foundation. So it's like to just be careful.
No, I'm saying.
No, I just am saying, like don't talk about them too bad. Although I'm just giving you a bad time because I totally agree with you, on that concept. And when, I have done work kind of looking at, multi-dimensional levels of existence and looking at the different energy bodies. And when you try to investigate that, looking through, I'm going to say Western New Thought texts, they all say the same thing. And it's like they all say the same exact sentence. We all vibrate and we're all energy. And it's like, okay, so what does that mean? And what's the science behind it? And none of them can explain it because they just take the same pat answer and use it over and over and over and over and over again. It's like, okay, well, that doesn't answer anything.
Correct.
But I think it's, refreshing that someone who has researched the quantum, the different sciences, to actually recognize and support, some of the material and phenomena that is coming out of that camp. It's very refreshing to me.
Yeah, and it's very refreshing that there's a movement that fits all this phenomena and all this different science. I mean, a lot of the New Age principles, they are, how should I say this? They're truths that had lacked a science before quantum physics became popular. So it's just that, unfortunately, with every good movement, you do have, shady individuals that just do exactly like you're saying, that they deliberately, I'm talking about the ones that deliberately do this, they go out and they say, quantum physics proves this, or this science proves this, so just follow me and give me, $1,000 as a life coach and I will make your life better. And then they don't make your life better. So you have a lot of different people, yet they profess the sciences, but then when you question them, they give the same answer or along the same lines of what you just said. Well, we're all energy. Okay, I understand that, but I'm struggling with this part of my life. Can you please help me understand that aspect more? Oh, well, it's just energy. So what you said is a perfect example of it. But the New Age movement as a whole, the New Thought music as a movement as a whole, it's just, like I said, it's just a wonderful time to be alive and to be amidst all of these different things, because you have this phenomenal science now that is, that is extremely well respected across the universe, across the world here, and that's quantum physics. And it is something that is proving to be more in line with, like I said, with the New Age movement, with the sages and everything, because of all the weirdness. And it is proving that, okay, well, while we were saying that out-of-body experiences don't occur in the scientific community, 100 years from now, or back then, or 200 years back then, we're now seeing that certain phenomena are not anything to be laughed at. Certain psychic phenomena or certain different phenomena that was just totally laughed at before. Now we have the science to prove certain things, and it's no different than any stage that society goes through. And again, when I say society, I mean a global society, such as before the invention of microscopes. We couldn't see bacteria, we couldn't see the atom, yet we come across this day where microscopes were invented, and then it's like, okay, now we have the ability to see these things, so now we know that they really are true. We can see the bacteria, so we know that we do need this antiseptic or this different procedure in the hospital because we need to battle these bacteria. And now we come across quantum physics, and now we see, okay, yeah, these things were true. And 50 years from now, 100 years from now, whatever, we'll come across a different science or different aspect of science, and we'll say, okay, the things that we thought back then that were foolish probably aren't too foolish now. And that's one amazing thing that quantum physics is doing with this I'll call it a spiritual movement, because like I said in the first half, it is something that we're all doing a good job about, trying to see that there are certain things that we can be better at as a whole, trying to see that we are supposed to be supposed to live a life that's far better than the life that we typically live in negativity, and we are far better creatures.
Well, we have a couple of questions from the chat room that I think I will ask, since they're kind of on the same topic. And this is from Time Walker, and he says, in this existence, how do you see the information of physics fitting in and working with this world? How can we use it to aid us?
Well, he's saying physics, he or she is saying physics, so I am struggling to see if he wants specific physics or quantum physics. So since we're talking about quantum physics, I'm going to guess that he means quantum physics.
Yeah, let's go with that.
Okay, thank you. That's typically what people mean when they say a question such as that, especially since quantum physics is relatively new still. Well, quantum physics is a little tricky. It is something that definitely shows us that there's another way of thinking, another world, if you will, available to us. And there are all kinds of different principles, all kinds of different experiments and phenomena that quantum physics looks at and proves that we can do to better our life. You got the principle of entanglement, you got the principle of superposition, all these different things, the Copenhagen interpretation, all these different things that show that there is something more to us, and consciousness, thought, intentionality, I should say, is something that does affect different things in the world. And you also get into the experiments that were done with REGs, random event generators, and that touches upon quantum physics, but also touches upon something that's called resonance. And that's where you have a random event generator. And for those that aren't familiar with that, that's just basically a device that generates randomly different numbers between 0 and 1. It's only 0 and 1. And it's just random generations. So you have an REG and you place it anywhere in the world, and a lot of times it was placed across the oceans. The experiments would be done in one country and the REG would be placed across the ocean. And the individuals would, and these are hundreds of experiments, so they're nothing to be, joked at or dismissed. And these people were able to affect these certain things. And then when you get into quantum physics, you look at the fact that, well, consciousness does affect certain things. In order to have a world, in order to have existence, you need an observer, because everything is a potential. Everything is potentiality. So you have X amount of potentials, and you zero in on a certain specific part of that potential, and that collapses the wave function, and you have a world. It's very similar to the old question of, if a tree falls in the forest and no one's around to hear it, then does it really fall? Well, according to certain principles, if no one's around to hear it, no one's around to see it, then that forest doesn't even exist. Because in order for there to be any creation, any world, any universe, you have to have an observer. And if you extrapolate upon that, well, if you need an observer to observe things, for things to come about, then you must have an observer to be able to accomplish this or be able to see this kind of reality. And that's where you go back and you say, well, then perhaps consciousness is the observer. And when I say consciousness, I mean the source energy, the unified field, the bottommost root of everything, where all the energy lies. Whatever you want to call that source, it's completely up to you. If you call it God, Krishna, energy, whatever it is. But that energy, the energetic source, is what's causing certain things to come about and not come about through us as humans, its manifestation. So it gets really tricky. I mean, that's a superficial answer here, but it gets very tricky as you go deeper and deeper. And I really appreciate the quantum physicists that profess that people who think they understand quantum physics say they don't understand it, because it's just a really weird world. And that's how we can see that physics does affect our world. It does affect how we think. It does affect how we carry ourselves, how we believe, our attitude. And if we were to tap into that and understand that very firmly, then we can understand that, yes, we can change our life. We can change a negative mindset into a positive mindset by understanding that everything we do, everything we feel is brought about by our own consciousness, by our own deliberate act, whether that deliberate act is known or not. And it is something that we can harness and change and better for ourselves and for our loved ones.
Okay, so I'm just going to make this statement, and then I'm going to read another question from in the chat room. But, just as long as we don't talk about the half-dead cats, I'm good. Okay? Because that just, still baffles me. Okay, this is from, or the one light becoming two lights. I remember a number of years ago, I tried to read Amit Goswami's The Physics of Consciousness, I think. And I'm like, hey, this book, our conversation earlier about the whole metaphysical community using physics. And I'm like, hey, this is going to have my answers. It didn't have any my answers. It just, and I'm on an airplane. And that was the only book I had. I was like, dang. Anyway,
This is from Neutron, and his question is, do you believe we might be under a microscope by a bigger world?
Oh, that is a good question.
It is a good question.
Yes, I just had this conversation with someone else in the last 2 weeks, and there is okay, for those that don't understand it, there's a theory called the holographic principle, and I'm going to be very basic here without being too scientific. What it basically means is that the universe and everything in it, such as Dr. Rita, such as myself, all you listeners, don't really exist. We're nothing but holographic projections. We are, okay, so that's the principle. Now, whether you say that we are things inside a computer or things inside a larger mind or things inside a larger brain that is an experiment, it's up to you. But it gets really tricky. It totally sounds like someone is high or they don't know what they're talking about.
Or they need to have like better fantasies about me, because the one they're having right now is not that great.
Yeah, I would say that as well about me. I would like a better one, but hey, we're doing the best here. So there is a very strong scientific push based on certain mathematical formula within quantum physics that the universe is nothing but a consciousness that is trying to experience itself, that is trying to get to a higher level of being or awareness, whatever you want to call it. And it can only do that through experiencing different experiences. So what it does is it creates us. It manifests individuals, different entities to experience certain things, and then it's able to understand certain things. It's able to understand itself, to understand and evolve in itself. And there's actually a lot of science behind it and a lot of proof behind it, a lot of evidence for it. We do know for sure that the basis of everything, the string level, the Planck level, the unified field level, whatever you call it, it's nothing but the source of pure energy, of pure information, of pure intelligence. And we do know that there is some kind of intelligence behind that creative source. We do know for a fact that there's some kind of understanding at the basis of everything. Now, again, whatever you call that thing, it's up to you, whatever you most resonate with. You can call it Jesus, Krishna, God, whatever. You can call it just the energy source. So with that said, there is a belief that, a theory, I should say, that we could very well be an experiment that is being done by a grander entity, whether that entity is a computer or a brain or another group of another species, whatever it is, it's up to you. But there's a lot of belief that may very well be the case, and this is what quantum physicists have trouble with discussing with lay people. It's very common that they say they don't like talking about these things with people who don't understand the principles and the theories and the quantum physics behind it, or the science behind it, because it truly sounds like nonsense. And I agree. It sounds like a bunch of educated people that don't know what the hell they're talking about. But if you go through the science, if you understand these principles, if you understand the formula behind it, you're going to see that whether you like it or not, these things are pointing towards that direction, that there is some kind of intelligence behind this creative source, behind this bottommost level of energy. And we are just nothing but experiences for that creative source. And you can extrapolate from there and say, well, then maybe we are all under a microscope. Well, we do know that to some extent we really are, because we are nothing but manifestations to create different experiences for this energy, I'll just call it, this source, to experience different experiences.
So you've used the direction, or the word direction, or
the direction of the source, have they been able to measure or identify where that source is? And I know that's kind of, you're probably going to say no, but I'm going to ask the question anyway.
I'll just say no. Next question.
Schmack.
Well, forgive me, I'm struggling between the signal here. Your question was if they understand the direction that the source is trying to go.
Well, I mean, you said that, you were making comments about, this source and, it directing us. And so if you look at it in the other way, have we been able to identify where the source is coming from?
Well, that's going to be a little bit of a tricky question, because we do know that the source is the bottommost layer of existence. And what I mean is, the string theory, the string level. I mean the Planck level. I mean the unified field level. Just think of the bottommost level of all creation. I'm not talking about organs. I'm not talking about cells. I'm not talking about nuclei. I'm not talking about atoms. I'm talking about the bottommost layer that we know of right now, which is the string level, the Planck level, the quantum level. So we do see that there's some kind of experience that's going on. There's some kind of direction that's given from that source. And a better way to answer that, I guess, would be to always remember, it's really important to always remember that when you attack something, attack a problem is what I'm trying to say. When you attack a problem, you really want to have at it via as many different vantage points as possible. For most of my life since I was a kid, I've always very firmly believed that you should attack a problem from the aspect of this science and this management principle and that marketing principle, that artistic principle, as many different principles and vantage points as possible, because then you can step back and see the problem and you can see how it relates in these different areas and how these different areas relate to these different disciplines that you're using to solve that problem. And when you look at a question that you just posed, where this energy is, where this source is, where it's leading us, where we're being directed, or where we're directing it, whatever it is, you want to step back and solve it from many different angles, because then you can solve the problem from the aspect of of resonance, or from the aspect of quantum physics or art or whatever it is, or management. And you can get a collection of different resolutions of different answers, and then you'll see that it's an answer that is much more readily understandable and visible when you step back from the problem and see it as a whole. Then you say, okay, well, this science is proving that it's going this way, this science is proving it's going this way. So you want to look into different disciplines. You want to look into the discipline of spirituality. You want to look into how quantum physics affects spirituality, approves or disproves spirituality. So you can then take a step back and see all the information, say, okay, according to this investigation we've done, it really seems like we're moving in this direction. And this is a basic principle of any problem solver, anyone who's working on strategy or war strategy or public strategy. You want to get as much information as possible, step back, see all the results, and then you can find a firmer solution, of course. And that's exactly what you want to do to determine any kind of direction that this source is putting us to, or that we're putting the source to, whatever way you want to look at it.
Okay. That was a little over my head, so we're just going to move. We're just going to move along. I'm sure they understood it. But I wanted to spend a little time with you because it's going by way too fast, and talking to you about the concept of morphogenic resonance, because I find it fascinating. And I have to tell you, Herman, I am really smart on a lot of topics, but for some reason, physics, not one of them. And I really don't understand why. But anyway.
You're that one person.
I am that one person. But anyway, yeah, and I just repeat the same sentence out of that one book that I wasn't even a book about physics that somebody else wrote about. It's just energy. Anyway, well, for people that aren't familiar with the concept of morphogenic resonance, can you explain what that concept is in the first place?
Yes, of course. Morphogenetic resonance is something that is posed by Dr. Rupert Sheldrake. He is a PhD from the UK, and he has been posing it for quite some time now, for quite a few decades. And what it basically means is that there's a field of memory, a field of resonance that is available to each species. So there's a different field of memory, of resonance for birds. There's a different field for humans. There's a different field for crystals, for all kinds of different things. And it's very similar to the concept of, let's say, TVs or radios. There is a signal that is put out via a certain frequency, and you can have a plethora of different frequencies, a multitude of different frequencies, but you have to tune into a certain frequency to see the picture on your television. You have to tune into a certain frequency to hear the radio program on your radio. So these different antennae, these different receptors, are the different species. The humans will be able to tap into this resonant source, and the birds will tap into this other source because we're at different frequencies, obviously. So it basically poses the theory that as species evolve, they're able to learn things quickly. They're able to move forward in a way that's being able to be done based on habit, based on a vast amount of collective memory, a vast amount of different habits that have formed, that have solidified a certain practice. So, for example, morphogenetic resonance is the answer given to the problem of, or not the problem, but the issue of people being able to learn things faster. For example, when computers first came out, they were very difficult to be learned, of course, as any new invention is going to be difficult. But as we have more and more people learn them across space and time, then you're going to be able to learn it much easier. So, for example, going back to the computers, now we have children who are able to understand computers at 4 or 5 years old, much faster than the adult was first able to comprehend computers and use them when they first came out. And there are different things that prove this theory, and that's just one aspect of it as well, the computer aspect of learning computers. So it's a phenomenal theory, in my opinion. I very much admire it, and I believe in it, and I try to do what I can to profess it as well. So it's something that has been tested for hundreds of different tests for decades. I mean, Harvard did hundreds of tests on the rats' water maze, and you got universities in Australia that tried to debunk that test, and they couldn't after everything they did. So you got a lot of different experiments that are going on. They're showing that there is some kind of, if you will, a collective memory that is surrounding, or not surrounding, but is holding memory and habits for the human species across time and space. Same thing is done for birds. Same thing is done for monkeys. And you have a lot of different phenomena where species are able to learn a habit across a vast area where there was no communication. But all of a sudden, a new habit started popping up in a different region, and there's no explanation for that. You have a different habit that you see monkeys doing, or that you see blue tits doing, a type of birds. humans doing in a different area, and there's no reasoning for it. It just automatically occurs. Well, morphogenetic resonance poses that that's because of morphic resonance. That's because of the collective consciousness, the collective memory, if you will, across space and time, where if you get a critical mass, a critical amount of people that are doing a certain habit, it becomes solidified, it becomes crystallized, and it is then available for other people within that species to be able to do, regardless of where they are in the world.
So can we take that down to an even more finite point of view and talk about it from the disease process? I mean, could there be, resonance patterns that run through families that ultimately turn into some genetic issue like gallbladder disease or diabetes that runs through, family lines or genetic lines?
Well, that brings up a personal issue. There's a big theory that disease is, I say it's more than a theory actually, that disease, it comes about from stress. It comes about from a lack of better immune system because of stress, because of worries, because of malnutrition, because of lack of a healthy diet. Obviously, that's already known. Actually, it's not a theory. Excuse me, but with that, you can say that, well, that would fall in the area of just a stifling of the human people, of the human potential that are able to overcome such things. It's just that they're inculcated with certain, like we spoke about earlier, with certain distractions, with certain negativities, with certain worries and stresses to help induce those situations that are better able to host those diseases, such as cancer, AIDS, and all that stuff. So, I mean, one can pose the question that, well, is there a morphic resonance for diseases? But these things are for, the morphic resonance is for habit. It's for some kind of habitual thing, habitual action. And you really want to...
Well, let me just interrupt you there for a second.
Sure.
Because, but what if the thing that the person or the family stresses on, is the habit? Okay, and let me just be straight with you. I mean, I work as a medical intuitive, and I've worked with many people that have issues that, I mean, there usually is some psychospiritual impact, or causation of the disease. And so I'll start talking to them, and, sometimes I will meet people that have like very strong behaviors, you know what I mean? And they're learned, or they didn't learn, as the case may be. And, then you start asking them certain questions, and you find out that, it plagues the entire family. And it just makes me go, well, is it because there's just this very long history of this piece of their consciousness being missing? And that didn't come out quite right, but I think you understand where I'm going with this, right?
Yeah, I see what you mean. Yes, all of these different negativities that are put into play into society by different institutions, they definitely lead towards a habit, a type of access to a resonance that is negative. So yes, all these different habits of worrying, of chronic fatigue, of the different things that you mentioned with the people that you see about the ailments, all these different things occur across space and time. So yes, it will definitely affect a certain species, across space and time. So it is something that's going to have a detrimental effect and a bringing about of diseases and ailments because of a certain habit. Unfortunately, whatever that habit is, if it's negative or positive, the field is not going to say, okay, that's a negative attitude or negative habit. I don't want that in here. Go away. Unfortunately, it's just going to accept whatever that habit is. And exactly what you said with these different negative habits plaguing humanity, plaguing the human species, it is definitely going to have an effect. And it is something that's going to, unfortunately, be easier to bring about disease, whatever that disease is, be it, again, cancer, HIV, all kinds of deadly ailments. So it is something that we have to watch. And that's one of the things that I touched upon earlier with being happy to be living in this life of New Ageism, New Thoughtism, and everything in quantum physics, because we're now seeing these things of exactly what you said, these different habits across generations, across regions, across time, are something that are detrimental if they're negative, obviously. And it is something that we need to change, because all these different theories behind quantum physics, behind even just basic psychology, behind morphic resonance, do show us that we are an evolving organism. We are a living entity, humanity, that is, the global society. And all these different things, all these different thoughts, all this negative thought, all this positive thought is affecting us, because it then becomes a habit. And all these different things are bringing about negative ailments. And it is a great thing that we're understanding this and understanding that we are part of a consciousness and we are moving forward in a more positive frame of mind. But as with anything, you can always do better and move faster, which I really hope we're going to be doing sometime in the near future.
Well, I'm looking at the clock and we have about 10 more minutes. So, which this hour went even faster than the last hour. So I'm going to come full circle, sort of. And I believe that many of the ancient cultures had vast understanding of physics, quantum physics in particular, and did it come down to us distorted through interpretation? You know, with your background in, ancient cultures and physics, what do you think of that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I know that anyone who is going about the research without any kind of bias without any kind of scientific bias, as Dr. Rupert Sheldrake poses that the scientific community is guilty of. Definitely. The only difference is that they didn't use the word quantum physics. They didn't use the phrase quantum physics. They didn't use the phrase resonance. They knew these things for millennia. And you can see that. If you look at the evidence, you see it without any doubt whatsoever. And this is coming from someone who just is forever engaged with seeking the truth. If a year from now, 50 years from now, something that I learn completely overturns everything that I've studied before, I'll go with it. I always try to remain neutral and just look at the evidence. So if you are of that mindset, you will see without a doubt that what you said is true. The only difference is back then they didn't have a science to prove these things or disprove these things. And that's where you get a lot of scientists, a lot of scholars who happen to be quantum physicists, such as Dr. John Hagelin, Dr. Quantum, who's Dr. Fred Alan Wolf, Dr. Stuart Hameroff, all these incredible minds across the world that are saying the very same thing that you just said. This knowledge was available to ancient civilizations through shamans, all these spiritual teachers, not religious people, but spiritual teachers who have been professing the same thing. We're all of one consciousness. This thing affects that. Positive thought is the way to go because it does affect you to some area. We're all unified. If one person does something and the next person does something and you reach a certain critical mass of a habit, then it's going to be easier to learn throughout that species, and that's exactly what Dr. Rupert Sheldrake poses. So all these different things, the answer to your question is without a doubt, absolutely, because you have these different beliefs, these different principles, these different professings that have been done since ancient times by these people. And we were the ones, we, the supposed educated people, were the ones that were fools, brushing them aside, saying, "Oh, that's a bunch of nonsense. That's a bunch of hippie nonsense or shamanistic nonsense, whatever it is." But now we have this wonderful science of quantum physics that's showing, oh, sorry, guys, we were wrong. You were right. So all these different things that they were saying about spirituality, about the universality of people, of consciousness, about all these different phenomena was actually right. And we've known it for quite some time. It's just that we've been stubborn and gone more towards an empirical science, and that is something that has really hurt us tremendously and has pushed us back quite a few years in our development. But we are moving forward. The good thing is that because of this New Age movement, like I've said multiple times, we are moving forward and we are starting to see that things are different and we can be a better society because these sciences show us morphogenetic resonance, quantum physics, certain aspects of psychology, and all these different things, principle of resonance. And that is why it's a very good time to be alive and to be existing and seeing this change. And hopefully we'll all be part of that change and to help prove these things and push society in towards a more positive and unified front.
So if science is starting to validate, to accept some of the concepts that have come out of that field, even though there isn't really, I don't think, ways to actually measure its effect, have they started to change their mind about concepts such as psychic phenomena or even ghosts? I mean, I believe ghosts are, disincarnate, they're spirits that just don't live in this dimension anymore, and that, we can interact with them. They live on just a different plane of existence, different vibrational plane. So are they starting to become more accepting of those concepts that, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, you were some weird person?
Yes, absolutely they are. And you find a lot of different scientists who are not afraid to go against the status quo, coming about and saying these certain things. And I'm talking about extremely prestigious minds. The ones that are not doing it, the ones that dismiss the information or go with the information and then just dismiss the solution, the ending result, they're either the ones who are just too stubborn and just not wanting to change the scientific status quo, or more cases than not, they're the ones that are just afraid of being ostracized, of losing their job, of losing their grant money. So they believe these things, but they're not professing it. And that latter part is something that is you come across a lot when you're in the scientific community or you're reading stories about the scientific community. Valid stories, not nonsense and rumors, of course. You come across a lot of different individuals who are very prestigious, highly respected, and they don't profess anything about the phenomena that you're speaking of, but they at the same time talk to these individuals that do profess those things, these other academics, and they say, I've experienced this since I was a kid, or my mom experienced this, or I know that this is true, but, how do we get the word out? How do we do it without losing our jobs? How do we do it without being ostracized? And the science is definitely there. It's available to anyone on the planet that wants to see it. The only problem is that it's stifled, it's hidden, it's not something that's disseminated readily for obvious reasons. And all these different phenomena of psychicism and OBE and ghosts and everything, there's a lot of, we're all energy, and energy is everywhere. That's a layman's phrase, of course. And, it's ghosts are nothing. I don't like using that word, but since you used it, are nothing but the continuity of individuals on a different plane, on a different dimension.
Oh, that sounds so nice.
Thank you. I stayed up all night thinking of that. So no, they're just, it's nothing else but energy of a personality, of a person, of a character on a different plane. And at certain points, you're able to access that different plane via different means. So once in a while, you can tap into those different dimensions. You can tap into different things. And it's nothing weird. It is not nonsense whatsoever. It is completely valid. It is completely sound science. It is just these, fools that are just trying to stifle it and saying it's a bunch of garbage. No, just look at the science. Don't say you're for it or against it. Just always be neutral and look at the science, and you'll see that there's a lot more stuff that's not only available, but completely provable and completely for us and for us to use that is in the realm of phenomena that you just spoke about.
And with it all being energy, they can tune in every Thursday night from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Well, they do have ghost radios, yes. Yes, I'm sure they're doing that right now. And the bad ones are the gremlins that tried to stop the sound going through the show.
Yeah.
Which are probably tied to the corporations that we didn't want to mention.
Well, I wanted you to mention them. It was you didn't want to mention them, but we can have that little, that little brother-sister debate later. So your book, I don't know how much we talked about is in your book, Seeking Truth While Sifting Through a Global Practice, and we only have like 2 minutes left. But, people want to get it, or could you give like the 25 words or less thing about what that book's about?
Yes, of course. The book of mine is about trying to create a different mindset, trying to create a more inquisitive, critical thinking, logical, commonsensical mindset for people, because a lot of people are distracted, like we spoke about earlier. A lot of people need to see things from a different vantage point and to see that there is a problem. So that is the main message of my research in general. But the book itself focuses on the religious aspect, how religion is detrimental to society, how it hurts us in many different ways, and it shows a lot of different angles. It's a very concise book because a lot of people don't have not only don't have time for certain things, but aren't interested in reading something that's, really thick. So it's a very direct book that shows different evidences, a trove of different evidences that really inundates you on why religion is bad and why these things are bad and why they're detrimental. And it gets you to see that we really
should. Okay, but your 25 words are up.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Okay, we really need to wrap up. We really need to wrap up. So, yes. Is it like available on Amazon and all that good stuff?
Oh, yes. Actually, it's available on my website. All my research and in certain bookstores, all my research and interviews are always available at my website, www.HermanSJr.com. And I'm always open to collaboration with other individuals if there are any questions. Anyone wants to do any research, I'm always open to that. You can always track all my information on that site.
Perfect. Well, I'm going to have to let you go because I know the music should be rolling up here in a second. Okay?
Yes. Thank you.
Well,
Thank you.
I had fun. I hope you had fun.
Yes, of course. I appreciate being on the show. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. You're so welcome. That's HermanSJr, and his webpage is HermanSJr.com. His book is Seeking Truth While Sifting Through a Global Practice. And so until next time, I'm Dr. Rita Louise. This is Just Energy Radio. Be blessed.
Join host Dr. Rita Louise each week at this time for Just Energy Radio. Point your browser to